You, a campus queen betrayed by your best friend and childhood sweetheart, publicly confessed your love to the school bully at a class reunion. Even the boy who secretly loved you to death in your previous life was stunned on the spot, and even kissed you directly to declare his ownership. However, your childhood sweetheart confidently thought you were just trying to spite him, but you took the school bully's hand and showed off your affection to everyone. My best friend instigated me to confess to my childhood sweetheart at the class reunion, but actually, they had already been together. She just wanted to embarrass me in public. As a result, I confessed to the school bully, who had secretly loved me in my previous life but never said anything. Didn't expect that, did you? This campus queen has been reborn! While Jessica Miller and I were waiting for the elevator at the KTV, boys kept looking our way. Is that Jennifer Delaney, the campus beauty? She's even prettier in person than in pictures. This is what you call a fairy, isn't it? I dream of having a girlfriend like her. I really want to ask for her contact info, but she's too beautiful. I don't dare. Jessica stood beside me expressionless, but the fists hidden in her sleeves were clenched tightly. I suddenly realized that she had actually been unhappy with me for a long time, hadn't she? It wasn't until she saw a familiar figure that Jessica happily called out, "Jason Smith, over here! Coming, Jessica!" Jason smiled and quickened his pace. When he walked up to me, I subtly took 2 steps back, not even glancing at him. Jason's steps paused slightly. Usually, I would proactively go up to him without him even having to speak, even though his attitude towards me had always been obviously impatient. "Jason, Jennifer has something to tell you tonight. Isn't that right, Jennifer?" Jessica nudged me with her elbow, signaling me to speak, but I just pushed her hand away. "I know, Jason!" I turned my head to look the other way. 3 boys were walking over from that direction. "Is Luke here tonight too?" "Luke, your new sports car is so cool. When can I borrow it for a spin?" Our Luke just woke up and doesn't want to talk. He wasn't planning on coming, but I wonder what news he received. Heh. My gaze fell on the boy called Luke. The boy looked like he had just woken up, his dark hair falling over his forehead, his eyes half closed, one hand in his pocket, the other idly spinning a car key. It wasn't until our eyes met that his body stiffened for a moment, and his eyes slowly lifted, but he only met my gaze for an instant before looking away. "Luke Dawson, good evening." I spoke first. Everyone around us was a little surprised. School bully Luke and school beauty Jennifer. It seemed they had never had any interaction before, right? Could it be that they actually knew each other? Luke also froze for a moment, then slowly said in a hoarse voice, "Good evening." The 2 boys next to him exchanged meaningful glances, then turned their heads to the side and snickered. "Jennifer?" Jason looked at me again with that impatient expression, his tone entitled, "When did you meet Luke?" But this time, I wouldn't humor him. I rolled my eyes and said, "What's it to you?" Jason pursed his lips and looked at me, his eyes dark and deep. "Jennifer, how can you talk like that?" Jessica was the first to jump to Jason's defense. "Jason is also looking out for you. He doesn't want you to associate with that kind of person. Why are you so aggressive? What kind of person?" I stared at her and said, "Is it someone who acts one way to your face and another behind your back? Or someone who is full of lies, hypocritical, and shameless? Don't misunderstand, I'm talking about you. Jason and I were childhood sweethearts. After Jessica and I became best friends, I naturally introduced him to her. And Jessica, knowing full well that I had a crush on Jason, secretly flirted with him behind my back while simultaneously encouraging me to pursue Jason. Although I felt Jason's inexplicable distance and annoyance towards me, I never imagined it would be the work of my good friend. Jessica didn't expect me to speak up for Luke. She urgently pulled my arm, trying to call me aside to tell me not to forget to confess to Jason, but I directly pulled my arm out of her hand. Jessica pulled too hard and almost fell, caught off guard. Jason immediately supported her with concern. This time, the look in his eyes was as if he wanted to tear me apart. "Jennifer, what are you doing? Apologize to Jessica." His voice was so stern and loud that people nearby couldn't help but look over. He glared at me fiercely, walking towards me step by step. I was forced to retreat gradually. But in the next second, my back hit a hard chest, and he smelled of a pleasant sandalwood scent. I instinctively turned around, my forehead touching the tip of the young man's nose. The young man held my arm, turning me to face Jason. His palm was broad and warm. Luke's tone was light, and he said word by word, "What a fierce voice, just like my dog." He was backing me up. I remember at this time in my previous life, I was made to cry by Jason and secretly turned my head away to wipe my tears. Luke was chatting idly with his buddies not far away, but his eyes were always on me. His brows were tightly furrowed, and his hand was pressed firmly against the wall, veins bulging. At the end of that night, I was rejected and humiliated by Jason, crying as I ran back to the dorm. The next day, I heard classmates say that Jason had been beaten up last night. He was badly beaten and went straight to the hospital. Now that I think about it, it must have been this young master who did it. Brother Luke, don't say that. Your Tibetan Mastiff is much more spirited than this guy. I can vouch for that. And he's worth a lot more than this guy, too. Luke's subordinate swaggered over, quickly attracting the attention of those around him. The elevator doors had opened, but no one dared to enter. What? You want to fight? Jason said coldly. No, no, Luke corrected. A fight involves two sides, and I can crush you unilaterally. I believe Luke wasn't exaggerating. Given this, I politely stepped aside. Classmate Luke, please. All right, everyone's classmates. It's all a misunderstanding. All a misunderstanding. Jessica was scared, and she quickly pushed Jason towards the stairwell. She didn't forget to wink at me. Jennifer, don't throw a tantrum. Don't forget why we're here tonight. I really wanted to slap her. In my previous life, I confessed to Jason at Jessica's instigation and was publicly rejected. He took Jessica's hand and announced their relationship, and I was branded a homewrecker. Overnight, I fell from being the envied campus belle to a laughingstock and an object of ridicule. Later, I dropped out of school due to depression. During my illness, I often received anonymous letters of encouragement. The handwriting was neat, with only a few simple words. Keep going. Someone will always be there. Each letter came with a blue platycodon flower. It wasn't until I died in a car accident that I realized those letters and flowers were all from Luke, the boy I had never noticed before, who would blush every time he saw me. Thinking of all the things from my previous life, my emotions surged and my shoulders trembled slightly. Luke seemed to sense my abnormality, and he hesitantly called my name. Jennifer? It sounded like a normal tone, but I heard a tenderness I had never heard before. I came back to my senses. The elevator's here. I nodded and immediately walked towards the elevator. Careful! I hadn't noticed the elevator doors were closing, and Luke quickly stepped forward, reaching out to hold them open for me. Whoa! Someone nearby, exclaimed dramatically. I bumped into the boy's arms, and at that moment, I heard my heart beating very fast. The boy's hand was still pressed against the doorframe. He was turned sideways to me, his brow slightly furrowed, his nose bridge high, and his lips a rosy red. I couldn't help but wonder, how could someone who plays soccer on the field every day and fights in the wind and rain still be so fair-skinned and have such tender skin? My thoughts were racing as I arrived at the top-floor hall. The classmates who arrived early had the music blasting deafeningly, but when they saw Luke's livid face, they all quietly turned down the volume. Actually, I don't think Luke was in a bad mood. He just looked terrifying even when he had no expression. Jennifer, come over here. Jessica waved me over to sit with them. Jason also stared directly at me. In the past, as long as he looked at me, I would definitely walk towards him. But now, things were different. I sat wherever Luke and his little brothers sat. The two little brothers were a bit flattered. What day is it today that the school beauty is actually sitting with us? The guys over there are going to be so jealous of us, damn. Luke's mouth twitched, and he suppressed a smile, slapping the boy on the head. The girl is here. Don't swear. I suddenly felt that these bad students, famous throughout the school, were quite cute. We sat in small groups like this, and during that time, Jessica gave me many meaningful glances, but I pretended not to see them. Finally, she couldn't hold back. Jennifer, didn't you say you had something to tell Jason tonight? Her voice rose an octave, drawing the attention of the other students. Jennifer, don't have any regrets. All those things you've wanted to say to Jason for so many years, say them tonight. I happen to want to know too. This statement was truly loaded with information. The students around us started gossiping excitedly. I smiled and nodded. Okay, I do have something I want to say in front of everyone tonight. I didn't miss the extremely excited yet resentful look in Jessica's eyes. Jennifer, hurry up and say it, she urged, unable to contain herself, her voice trembling with excitement. Meanwhile, Jason looked at me coldly, a look of annoyance on his face. In the silent air, I stood up, walked over to Luke, and declared loudly, Luke, I've liked you for a long time. Be my boyfriend. The room erupted. It was as if a depth charge had been dropped, and the whole place boiled over. Holy shit. Luke's buddy, shocked, bumped into him. Luke seemed to be petrified on the spot. A flush quickly spread from his earlobes up his very pale face. He gazed at me, his Adam's apple bobbing, a glimmer in his dark eyes. "Are you serious?" he asked hoarsely. "Of course," I said with a smile. "What?" Jessica shrieked, no longer bothering to pretend, rushing towards me. "Jennifer, why are you confessing to Luke? Weren't you going to confess to Jason?" "Jason!" Seeing Luke's eyes dim, I turned around and saw that Jason had also stood up from the sofa, his face terribly dark. I chuckled softly. Why would I confess to him? He's not my type at all. "Jennifer," I had never seen Jason look like this before. Astonishment, shock, pain, disbelief, a myriad of complex emotions flashed across his face. He walked over. "Jason, what are you going to do?" Jessica instinctively grabbed Jason's hand. I chuckled. "Jessica, I should thank you for persistently encouraging me to like him. But isn't he your boyfriend? Right, Jason?" I looked at Jason, and he responded to my words with a silent acknowledgement. "No." Jessica tried to explain, both surprised and anxious. But by then, everyone had already made their own judgments, especially the girls, who immediately understood what was happening tonight. Our class monitor, who was always straightforward, directly said, "How disgusting. Always scheming against her best friend. People like her only act like a green tea in front of men." Jessica's face instantly turned red. But to my surprise, Jason seemed to have no reaction to this. I suddenly felt that he wasn't oblivious. He had simply been silently condoning Jessica's bullying and slandering of me. Jason said calmly, "Jennifer, are you making a fool of yourself just to spite me?" I was impressed by his confidence. I stared at him and said, "Jason, you've always trampled on my friendship, yet you expect me to heal my wounds and come back to you. Where do you get the confidence to keep hurting me like this? Do you really think I can't live without you?" He fell silent, petrified. Luke unfroze and stepped in front of me. The boy's earlobes were as red as ripe cherries. "Whether she was joking or not, she has nothing to do with you now." "But I was serious all along," I said, blinking innocently. The next second, I pulled Luke's shoulder, turned him towards me, and pressed my lips against his. Luke's eyes widened. The students froze, and then their voices went hoarse. "Oh my God! Is this something I can watch for free? Help! This damn compatibility!" "Ah, my goddess, ah." Suddenly realized that only Luke can match the school beauty's looks, and the person I was kissing had even stopped breathing. There was a faint scar at the corner of his eye, now covered by the shadow cast by his long lashes. Luke stared at me in shock, his long eyelashes not even blinking. However, this only piqued my interest even more. Does this guy even know how beautiful his eyes are? I felt like I was teasing an innocent young man, deliberately rubbing his lips and whispering, "Luke, why do you blush so easily? Don't you know how to kiss your own girlfriend?" His face turned even redder. The young man reached out, cupped the back of my head, and deepened the kiss with force. This was my first kiss in 2 lifetimes, and I never expected myself to be so proactive. It felt like a moment of impulse just now. Seeing him, I just wanted to kiss him. Is this what it feels like to start a proper relationship? It seems pretty sweet. I gradually closed my eyes. That night, I was in a daze, and my last memory was Luke walking me back to the dorm. As for Jason and Jessica, I completely ignored them and blocked them both as soon as I got back. A friendship of 3 is too crowded. You don't need to scheme to exclude me. I'll leave on my own. As soon as I returned to my dorm, Jessica knocked on my door, saying I misunderstood and she wanted to explain. She said she had no other intentions with Jason. She emphasized, "Jennifer, do you really not like Jason anymore? Didn't you say you liked him because he's handsome and mature? Didn't you two grow up together as childhood sweethearts?" I understood that Jessica couldn't accept that the only thing she had ever won against me had already been discarded by me. Her feelings for Jason might not have been love, but rather a desire to compete and compare herself with me. "Jennifer, would you please come out and see me?" Jessica persistently knocked on the door until my roommate returned and sent her away. My gaze remained fixed on my phone screen, and the corners of my mouth couldn't help but curl into a slight smile. Luke had only just added me tonight, and he dazedly asked, "Are we really together? I'm very innocent. Don't lie to me." I burst out laughing. I found 2 couple avatars and sent them to him, and Luke quickly changed his. He said, "I'm still a little excited," I said with a smile. "Don't be so excited. Let's go to class together tomorrow." "Good night, my boyfriend." "Okay, good night, my girlfriend." Later, I heard from his roommate that he was more than a little excited. That night, he practically tore his dorm apart, running into the hallway and shouting, "Jennifer is my girlfriend," until dawn. No one dared to stop him. He only stopped when his voice went hoarse. Then he went to the bathroom for a cold shower, found he still couldn't control his excitement, and went to run laps on the sports field. That night, I put down my phone and lay in bed, still unable to fall asleep for a long time. In my previous life, the time I took a break from school was mostly spent taking medicine and seeing doctors, and I was no longer the object of envy in others' eyes. But I used to be an excellent student, good at singing and dancing, and was recognized as the all-around campus beauty. I was also a role model for younger students. After I fell from grace, everyone seemed to forget me, except for him. Luke would never abandon Jennifer. Because of him, slowly, no one dared to talk about me behind my back anymore. Even in the new campus beauty pageant, Luke voted for me by name. On the day of the school's voting, I was sitting by the window at home, contemplating for the umpteenth time whether to jump. Mom ran into my room, her voice trembling as she held up her phone. She said, "Daughter, look, your classmates haven't all forgotten you. This boy is holding your name." In the live video, in the huge voting venue, Luke, wearing a black suit he rarely wore, walked to the front of the stage, looking very formal and out of place. He seemed to disregard everyone present. He, who was usually indifferent to everything, solemnly placed a sign with the name Jennifer written on it on the table. It was the only vote, standing alone, yet it was more striking than anyone else's name. At that moment, sunlight splashed everywhere, and the young man looked at the sign in his hand, a smile playing on his lips. With all due respect, this school beauty pageant is completely unnecessary. The gap is too wide. The host was a little flustered by the sudden situation. He hesitated and asked, "Luke, are you sure?" "Of course." The young man slightly raised his eyes to look at the camera, smiling confidently as he said, "If I, Luke, fall for someone, I will choose her again and again. 1,000 times, 10,000 times, until I die." I stared blankly at the screen, suddenly remembering the person who anonymously wrote letters to encourage me. On one of the letters, a girl was drawn on the front, holding a funny-looking puppy. The puppy was wearing black clothes and had a scar under its eye. The text on the back read, "The puppy will never abandon you. The puppy will always be passionate and loyal to you." Remembering the funny look of the puppy in that drawing, I couldn't help but laugh. That seemed to be the first time I had laughed since I got sick. Mom looked at me, shocked and excited that I finally showed normal human emotions. She stood there, at a loss, for a long time. Then she cried and came to hug me. Now that I have been reborn, I will never again let down anyone who likes me, and I will never let anyone easily destroy me. The next morning, Luke and I walked hand in hand through campus. Everyone we passed couldn't help but glance at us. Luke usually had his bangs stubbornly brushed up, but today they fell naturally, giving him an oddly docile look with his dark, black eyes. I suddenly wanted to kiss him. Just then, we passed a child eating a candied hawthorn skewer, their big eyes especially bright and cute. I was instantly captivated. Shyly, I pointed at the child and said to Luke, "Look, I want one like that too. I also want to have a child like that with you." I didn't dare say the rest. I thought, our combined genes surely wouldn't be bad, right? It would be best to have a boy and a girl, the son taking after him, and the daughter after me. Luke nodded, as if suddenly understanding. "I get it. I promise. You'll have whatever others have." He looked around, then let go of my hand and ran off to the side. "Where are you going?" I was stunned. The boy didn't look back, quickening his pace. "Wait for me. I'll be right back with candied hawthorn for you." "Luke, could you be any more literal?" I simply sat on a bench by the roadside, playing on my phone and waiting for him. I was engrossed in a game when light footsteps stopped in front of me. "Luke, is that you?" The smile on my face instantly vanished without a trace. Jason, uncharacteristically, smiled at me, holding a steaming, fragrant basket of xiaolongbao. "Haven't eaten yet, have you? Here, your favorite non-xiang xiaolongbao." He handed me the bag, but I raised my hand and knocked the bag over. "Jason, do you know? I once died, both physically and mentally. The one thing I can't allow myself to do is repeat the same mistakes. Sorry, my boyfriend is taking me to dinner soon." I paused, remembering that I shouldn't litter, so I bent down, picked up the bag, and threw it into the trash can. Jason, however, watched it all with a smile from beginning to end. "Jennifer, you've always been such a proud girl," I retorted unceremoniously. "You've always been so sick." I was about to leave when Jason suddenly raised his voice. "Have you ever seen Luke get drunk and fight with people with his buddies? Have you ever seen him play dice and drink with people at a bar? Don't you know, Luke has a lot of girls around him. He might just be playing with you." I turned my head and looked at him expressionlessly. Jason's voice became a little steadier, and he said, "You've never had any contact with Luke before, Jennifer. Do you really like him? A scoundrel like him? Is he worthy of you?" The rest of his words were cut off. I pulled my hand back, and Jason incredulously reached up to touch the side of his face where I had just slapped him. "You hit me for him?" "Yeah." I glared at him and smiled. "You called my boyfriend a scoundrel? Why didn't I just kill you?" Jason's eyes were filled with shock and unfamiliarity. Yes, the old me was extremely gentle. Not only would I not lay a hand on anyone, I wouldn't even say harsh words. Whenever I cried because of Jason, he would disdainfully say that I was a hothouse flower, spoiled by my family, crying over every little thing, and told me to go find boys who would indulge me. Actually, at that time, I cried more out of sadness, sad that he never stood by me. "Jason!" A shriek came. Jessica, who knows where she was hiding, flew out at this moment, anxiously cupping Jason's face to check. "Does it hurt? Is it a serious injury? Jennifer, you're too much." She babbled on, but Jason kept looking at me, and he suddenly interrupted her. "Jennifer, you've changed. Thanks for the affirmation." I pulled a tissue from my pocket, vigorously wiped my hand clean, and threw it into the trash can. "Jason, let's go." Jessica's expression darkened a bit. She tugged at Jason's arm and forcefully pulled him away. Jason followed her, but still turned his head to me. He walked a few steps and then stopped, his eyes still full of complex emotions. Meeting their gaze, I turned away expressionlessly. A tall figure stood under the camphor tree ahead, a boy holding a candied hawthorn skewer in his hand, his eyes curving into a smile at me in the faint morning light. My eyes suddenly lit up. "Luke!" I laughed and ran towards him, and he opened his arms to catch me. I hugged his slender waist tightly, secretly thinking that he felt really good to hold, and his arms were long enough to completely envelop me. "Jennifer." Luke's voice fell on my head, gentle and soft. "Actually, you don't have to stick up for me. I never care about what those people say." "I know, but I just won't allow anyone to badmouth my boyfriend," I whispered, hugging him even tighter. Just like countless times before when I watched Jason and Jessica leave together. This time, I boldly took Luke's hand in front of them, clinging to his arm like a human pendant, letting him feed me candied hawthorn while we walked towards the cafeteria. Just showing off. When you meet someone you like, you naturally become a master at it. During dinner, I heard the girls at the next table discussing. "I never thought Luke would smile, and he looks quite handsome when he smiles." Her friend across from her immediately patted her. "Oh, he's already taken, and he and Jennifer, the campus belle, are really a good match. Luke's computer science department had no classes that morning, so he came to class with me." The small classroom wasn't big, and everyone became much more alert because of Luke's arrival. But what caused even more of a stir was the arrival of Kristen, another school bully who used to hang out with Luke. She had taken a leave of absence a while ago, and everyone thought she wouldn't be back at school anytime soon. Kristen had dyed her hair black and, for the first time, wore it down instead of in a ponytail. She was wearing a white Chanel-style outfit, with the top open to reveal a sexy bandeau underneath, making the boys next to her blush and avert their gaze. I suddenly remembered that Kristen had also once been voted the most beautiful girl in the computer science department, but later she preferred to act like a tomboy and hang out with Luke and his friends. Seeing Luke and me enter, Kristen said bluntly, "Heh, brother Luke is here for class too." Luke didn't even glance at her, pulling my hand and sitting down at the back. Kristen chuckled, then turned and said, "Is it that bad? I just failed to confess to you, didn't I? If we can't be lovers, we can still be friends, just like before. Can I continue to be your little follower?" Luke snorted through his nostrils, saying nothing as he took a tissue to wipe my desk. Kristen continued to speak, this time looking at me. "Brother Luke, I just realized you like this kind of girl. But what's the difference between me and her now? Why can't you even look at me?" Luke finally couldn't bear it anymore, and spoke. "Kristen, I don't want to be mean to girls. Just behave yourself." "All right," Kristen giggled, and went to flip through the comic books spread out on the table. In fact, love or not love, it's really obvious. If I'm not mistaken, the comic book Kristen was reading was Luke's favorite style. At this moment, Luke was frowning and flipping through my advanced math textbook, looking as if he was deep in thought. "Do you know how to do this problem?" I deliberately leaned over to tease him. Luke glanced at me. His cheeks immediately flushed. He nodded, then shook his head. "Then I'll explain it to you." I winked at him, and Luke's face turned even redder. He's so cute. I tried to suppress my laughter and used my pen to work out the problem for him. After I finished explaining the problem seriously, I looked up and found the young man quickly averting his gaze. "Luke, I pretended to be stern. Were you looking at the textbook or at me just now? He glanced at me, then lowered his eyes like a puppy that had done something wrong. Looking at you. Luke, if you keep staring at me like this, the teacher will scold you. His eyelids twitched, and he said nonchalantly, I still choose to look at you. That picture reappeared in my mind. The girl walked ahead, leading a small dog, and the dog gazed at the girl's back, always. Luke, this time, I won't let you down again. After class, Luke was called out by a boy who said he needed to talk to him. As soon as he left, Kristen sat down next to me. Without saying a word, she propped her head up and scrutinized me. You were staring at me all through class. Haven't you had enough? I closed my textbook without batting an eyelid. The girl said with a giggle, Jennifer, he really seems to like you. Even though everyone says you're the campus beauty, I'm still surprised he chose you. It's not that you're not good enough. It's just that, in my eyes, Luke is the best. I looked into her eyes. They were beautiful phoenix eyes, showing no jealousy or resentment, but rather genuine admiration. Like a telepathic connection between girls, I could feel that she held no ill will towards me. I nodded. I understand how you feel, and I will take good care of him. Kristen picked up a strand of my hair and chuckled. You know what? When I first met him, I had the same hairstyle as you, and I also liked to wear my hair down back then. The first time I met Luke was when I was cornered by a group of thugs, and no one passing by stopped to help me, only him. He rode his motorcycle straight into them, blocking them in front of me. When talking about Luke, Kristen's eyes sparkled, and the curve of her lips became more pronounced. I remember his cold, stern profile in the night, arrogant and rebellious. His eyes were wild, yet extremely pure, with a fatal attraction to people. He looked at those thugs and calmly said, Get on. That was the first time I rode on his motorcycle. Later, I wanted to follow him forever, so I simply tied up my hair and followed him everywhere like a brother. He didn't let me follow him at first. Then I desperately fought with him a few times and made enemies with others. So he had no choice but to let me follow him. Kristen's smile was tinged with bitterness. I once thought that as long as I could stay by his side, I would have a chance. But I was wrong. Jennifer, your appearance made me lose everything. I looked at Kristen sympathetically and reached out to put my hand on her shoulder. I was about to say some comforting words when Jessica suddenly burst in from somewhere. She must have heard a lot of rumors in the academy, and now her whole mental state doesn't look very good. Jennifer, I was indeed with Jason before. It was my fault. I shouldn't have hidden it from you, but it was all his idea, and actually, my agreeing to him was also a last resort. Kristen looked up with a strange expression, raising an eyebrow. Jessica immediately continued. But now I've broken up with him. Jennifer, you'll always be my best friend, and all men can go to hell. She forcibly pulled my hand, tears welling up in her eyes. Can we go back to the old days? Can we still be inseparable best friends like before? So what do you want? I said with a smile. Jessica thought I was still as easy to fool as before, and she said with a crying voice, I knew you wouldn't abandon me. You're the best. Did Luke bully you? If he dares to make you angry, I'll stand up for you. Stop, 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 Kristen said, crossing her legs. Why do I feel like I can't listen to this anymore? This big sister. The young couple's relationship is going great. Why do you need to meddle? Who do you think you are? Kristen didn't know Jessica, but Jessica had heard of her reputation. She wouldn't dare provoke this notorious big sister. She instinctively took 2 steps back and whispered, I'm also doing this for Jennifer, speaking from her perspective. If you don't want to hear it, fine. But she hasn't said anything. I slowly began to speak. Kristen is right. Jessica, who do you think you are? I enunciated each word clearly. If I remember correctly, when Jason and I were still on good terms, you were the one who kept yelling that I shouldn't be bullied and that you would stand up for me and settle the score with him. As a result, you two ended up getting together, and I became the outsider. Now you want to try the same trick again? Going after Luke? Kristen suddenly understood and concluded, Isn't this the legendary green tea bitch and man whore? This big sister has really mastered the art of stealing a friend's boyfriend. Jessica suffered multiple heavy blows from last night until today, and now even Kristen, who she doesn't know at all, can expose her true nature with pinpoint accuracy. She stomped her foot in anger and ran out of the classroom. I turned and met Kristen's gaze, and we both surprisingly burst out laughing at the same time. Maybe we could be friends, I said. Kristen pouted and said, Forget it. You're my love rival after all. I don't want to see either of you again. Today was my last attempt for myself. Well, I lost, I admit it. By the time Luke returned that day, Kristen had already left the classroom. and the comic book she had been flipping through all morning was now silently lying in the trash can. The page was open to the first page, with clumsy yet clear handwriting. Luke, could you please like Kristen? In the days that followed, I felt like I was living in a honeypot every day. Luke doted on me immensely, listened to my every word, and, as if enchanted, gave me many gifts every day, wishing he could give me everything he thought was good. The arrogant and domineering aura he once had seemed to have completely vanished overnight. Not only did his hairstyle and clothes make him look like a good student, but he also smiled more, always proudly showing off his girlfriend to his brothers. He talked a lot more, and people who knew him before almost didn't recognize him. It was only later that I realized he hadn't changed his impulsive and adventurous nature. He had just reined in all his sharp edges for me. Luke even once offered me the keys to his beloved sports car, which I firmly refused, because I had already received the best gift he could give me, those letters when I was most lonely and helpless, and those beautiful yet solitary blue campanula flowers. In stark contrast were Jason and Jessica. Jessica had a terrible reputation. She almost received the same treatment I had in my previous life. Jason, too, was noticeably much quieter, exuding an air of suppression. Many times, when Luke and I went shopping hand in hand, we would coincidentally run into him somewhere. Although neither of us greeted the other, after we passed by, I could strongly feel a very intense gaze fixed on me. Time flew by to Christmas Eve. In my previous life, I died on that day. This year's Christmas Eve was accompanied by a heavy snowfall, with a bright moon and a blanket of white on the ground. My lips were chapped for some reason, and I was so angry that I ignored him for half the day, only agreeing to go out with him in the evening. Luke prepared a huge Christmas gift box for me, just like he saw on Douyin, and inside it was nothing but apples and stacks of red RMB. I was amazed by his generosity, but also helpless about his straightforward way of expressing his love. The pedestrian street was bustling, full of couples, and the girls' faces were flushed. Their hands were all held by their boyfriends and tucked into their pockets. Only Luke, the straight man, walked with his zipper open as if he wasn't cold, pulling my hand into his embrace. "Aren't you cold?" I asked him. Luke grinned foolishly and said, "No, I actually feel quite warm. Lately, I'd almost forgotten that my boyfriend used to be a notorious school bully. Every day he looked foolishly happy. He'd feed stray cats and dogs, and he'd become patient with everything." Just as we were strolling along the street, a commotion suddenly erupted from the crowd. For some reason, the moment I heard the sound from over there, my heart suddenly pounded. A fear originating from my bones enveloped me, and I shook my head hard to clear it. It turned out a drunk man had fallen onto a girl, and the girl's boyfriend was furious and about to teach him a lesson. But the man's companion immediately walked over, and the girl loudly said, "Misunderstanding! Misunderstanding!" and quickly pulled her boyfriend away. Damn. Two idiots. The man, reeking of alcohol, stood up and clapped his hands, speaking clearly. "Forget it! Forget it! There are plenty of these schoolgirls. Come on, bro. I'll take you to that bar. Let's drive." Luke stopped and looked over. His eyes were pitch black, with fine bloodshot lines slowly creeping up his eyeballs. "Jennifer, wait a moment. I'll go buy you some chocolate milk tea," he earnestly instructed me. "There are police officers standing guard over there, so just sit here and wait for me. Don't go anywhere, okay? I'll be back as soon as possible." I felt something was off, but I still agreed. Not long after Luke left, I saw the person I disliked the most. Jason, who usually wore white or light blue shirts, was surprisingly dressed all in black tonight. He still stood a few steps away, silently watching me. But I promised Luke I would wait for him here so I wouldn't leave easily. I shifted my position, casually crossing my legs. As Jason would say, I could never like a girl who is eccentric and too outspoken. How ridiculous. I used to buy many blue dresses because Jason liked light blue shirts. Kristen, who liked Luke, would tie her hair up and then let it down for him. Luke transformed himself into a well-behaved student for me. And now, Jason is wearing black, a color he used to despise. All for me. Everyone changes themselves for the person they like, but they don't realize that love itself is an existence that breaks all conventions. There will always be someone whose appearance will break through all your expectations and hopes. He may not be perfect, but the moment he appears, there will be a voice in your heart saying, "This is him." "Jennifer, can't we go back to how things were?" Jason suddenly spoke. How things were? Was it before Jessica? I remember in junior and senior high, Jason always rode his bike to take me to and from school. He didn't talk much. I would chatter all the way, and he would listen. Even when I said something funny, he wouldn't budge. Perhaps only the wind knew if he was smiling then. Because I was always popular at school, he said he hated the feeling of being talked about when walking with me, so he made a deal with me. We weren't allowed to act like we knew each other on campus. But after Jessica came along, he would only bring 1 cup of milk tea when Jessica and I were waiting for him. It was strawberry flavored. Jessica loved strawberry milk tea the most. But he forgot that I also loved milk tea, and my favorite was chocolate flavored. Jason, what do you think? I said heavily. Is it really necessary to go back to how things were between us? The Jessica you like only has eyes for you. She's faking it, I can tell. Jason finally admitted. I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Is it really that interesting to let her torment me? Jason's eyes flickered slightly. Jennifer, I just wanted you to tone down your brilliance a bit. You're too dazzling, and I always felt like you wouldn't stay by my side forever. I'm sorry. This was the first time in my life I'd heard Jason apologize to anyone. Unfortunately, this apology came too late and was meaningless. I think we have nothing left to say. Some people appreciate roses, while others, fearing their thorns might hurt them, choose to do whatever it takes to make them wither. Such selfish people don't deserve my forgiveness. Suddenly, an anxious figure ran towards us. Kristen's face was pale, and tears were welling up in her eyes. Jennifer, something bad has happened! Luke got into a fight, and the other side has more people and they're all drunk. Call the police quickly. When we arrived at the scene, I saw shattered debris all over the alley and faint traces of blood. People were lying all over the ground. My heart was breaking. Don't go near them. My voice was very low. I had never been so calm yet so frantic. Jason and Kristen were scared by my expression. Jason insisted on going forward but was sharply stopped by Kristen. Jennifer, you go. If anything's wrong, call us immediately. The police and ambulance will be here soon. I nodded. I knew that at this moment, Luke only wanted to see me. I slowly walked forward. Many people were lying on the ground, with marks from beatings all over their bodies. I couldn't imagine my boyfriend facing this group of people alone and helpless, but he still won. He wasn't uninjured. He just frantically held on until the end. Jessica was also there, kneeling on the ground, trembling and saying something. Yes, the girl the drunkard had just harassed was Jessica. The boy next to her at the time was Jason. Jason couldn't let go of Jessica's sweet and gentle nature, but he also couldn't let go of me, his childhood sweetheart. How could I not be disgusted by him? I was just angry that Jason left me again to go find her. I defiantly walked towards a less crowded place and happened to run into that group of people at the entrance of the parking lot. I was so scared, so I said that Jennifer, the campus belle from our school, was very beautiful, and if they had the guts, they should go find her. Jessica was trembling violently. She stammered on her knees, finally unable to bear it, and fainted. The wooden stick in Luke's hand, which had been supporting his body as he half knelt, loosened, and he also fell. But the moment he fell, I caught him. Jennifer? I saw liquid splattering on his shoulder. Only then did I realize I was crying. Why are you crying, Jennifer? The young man's face was a little pale, but he still smiled happily at me. Look, I beat them all by myself, like a child waiting for praise. Luke said weakly. Jennifer, I had a very vivid dream. In the dream, that bald drunk driver hit you, and I almost went crazy. I remember his face very clearly, so I couldn't help but follow him. When I heard Jessica was going to take them to find you, everything I saw in my dream instantly flooded my mind, and I couldn't control my emotions, so— You fool, I suddenly cried and laughed. Whether in my previous life or this one, he would always stand up for me no matter what. He, who was obsessed with protecting me and not allowing anyone to invade, had never changed. Luke rested his head on my shoulder, and I heard him whisper, Jennifer, what's different from the dream is that I can finally protect you by your side. I tried hard to suppress the stinging sensation overflowing from my eyes, and stretched out my fingers to carefully trace his eyebrows and eyes. I said very softly, Puppy, I've come to take you home. The last letter he sent me in my previous life contained a very long passage. The language of the balloon flower is eternal love and hopeless love. My love for you is eternal, but I know I may never see you turn back. You definitely don't know a boy named Luke. You also definitely don't know that blue was the color you wore the first time I saw you. That day, you were wearing a very ethereal blue long dress, carrying your backpack, walking on the path under the shady trees. The moment I saw you, my whole world became clear and bright. I had never seen such a beautiful girl. I pointed at you and said to my brother, Is that Jennifer, the campus belle? I must win her over. The funny thing is, I later found out that I was actually a cowardly wimp. I only dared to watch you from afar, but I didn't dare to approach you at all. The countless times we accidentally met and brushed past each other were all premeditated, and I had rehearsed them over and over again, summoning my courage. At one point, I suddenly realized that such a dazzling girl belonged to the world, not to Luke. It was also on that day that I suddenly longed to see him. For the first time, I dragged my weak and powerless body out of the house. Because I was too anxious, I accidentally got into a car accident while crossing the road and died on the spot. The silver lining was that I was reborn. Jennifer does not belong to this world. Jennifer only belongs to Luke. My dearest, dearest puppy. Please believe me. This time, I will never let go of your hand.